well, much later than
That's right.
than 5. Some of us find out at 45 that, hey, I never thought about that. Let's try this. Now that's one of my loves, and everything else I thought I was supposed to be doing is not even in the like category.
Totally. Totally. I mean, something in our house was we never talked about it. I was never encouraged to do post-secondary education.
What?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's getting more and more common.
But I went and did 2 degrees on my own, right?
Wow.
Like just went out and did it on my own, but it was never like encouraged. It wasn't discouraged, but it was just like, I was like, aren't we supposed to go to college or something? Like university, is that a thing? Like, yeah. And I was like, I think that's a thing, folks. I'm going to go do it.
I mean, I certainly, it was just sort of the, I watched most of my cohort go and do that, but I think more and more these days, there's so many different options that are available.
I know. It's going back to like when my mom, she got her job out of like half a semester of college doing accounting for like $20-something an hour in a small town. I was like, I mean, we're kind of changing back, but there's like this big chunk where times are not like that. I'm like, you can't even apply for a job without,
Crazy, isn't it?
But.
All right, you guys, listen. It's past 1:30. I need to get back on task here. So what I'm going to do here is we're currently live within the group. So anybody that can't figure out how to access Zoom can watch us within the group. For anybody that, and again, this is being recorded so that people can actually utilize this particular webinar today as part of their module going forwards in this program. So I'm going to be teaching a little bit, but I'm also going to probably ask one of you guys to participate a little bit because I'm going to use you guys in the actual process that we're going to go through today. And then as Mr. Edward Elliott had warned me of in the past, I had completely expected to have my app up and running today so that you guys could use it. And my last update, the developer just completely effed it up. Now, I say that it's all their fault. I completely miscommunicated a bunch of stuff. It's all gone wrong. So I can't have you guys access the app. It would have you asking some pretty funny, silly questions. So what I'm going to do here is, let me actually go into share format. As much as I'd love to see all your smiley, happy faces, which we can still do over there, I'm going to move into this guy, and I'm still going to move you guys out of the way. We are going to go to summary day. Okay, so listen, welcome essentially to the 4th day of this 7-day challenge, you guys. There may be times where I'll ask you guys to pull forwards, or I may ask you guys, or I may mute you guys out as I ask questions as I'm going along. I would highly encourage each of you today to have your journal or something to write on out in front of you. Okay. To begin with, I'm just going to summarize what we've gone through the first 3 days. The first day is really just in the code. The code is essentially telling the truth about the facts of where you are in your body, your being, your balance, and your business. So body, I say being, I call it fulfillment. Balance is more relationships and business. What are the actual facts? Then you go through the process and we strap it out for a year. That's going to create a gap, which we're going to reverse engineer in day 7. But that work has to be done throughout this week, because if it's not done, it's really hard to start to take the information out of that and synthesize this into something that's productive. Day 2, it's difficult. Let's see if I can go back to this just for a second. It's difficult to climb up the proverbial mountain that we all want to get, this place of internal freedom that we all desire in our lives. It's really difficult to get up there without a solid foundation of habits with our body, with our fulfillment, with our relationships, and within our business structures and our finances. And I want to remind each of you guys that when one of those areas starts to do this, all of the other ones come crashing down. So as much as we all want to climb up the mountain, it's tough to do so without a solid foundation, which is why the code and the engine are there. Okay. Yesterday we talked about the fuel. The fuel is about really identifying the lens with which we each look through. I'd love to teach everybody my lens, but it's my lens. And a lot of people that follow me on a regular basis will notice that you have a tendency towards a similar lens as me, but nobody has the same lens. Even my wife, when we look at the definition of values, we both have adventure, but hers is physical adventure. She likes to go check out new shit. I just like to innovate stuff, and that can be innovating my physical surroundings. So I'm happy to check out Greece. I'm happy to check out Mexico, but I'm really just into innovation. That's adventure for me. Anything can be an adventure, okay? So the way that we each look through our individual lens and our own mission is really important to just get it out. Now, eventually, for those of you that do a lot of coaching with me, I know there's a couple of you guys that are on here right now, I like to encourage people to write those things out on a daily basis, just like the engine habits, because the more you start writing and articulating your values and your mission statement, the more you refine it, the more you start to realize it, the more that you can start to constructively actualize more of who you are on a daily basis. And I'm hoping that's making sense to you guys. That will only make sense once you actually start to do it. And those of you that are nodding right now know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? So today we're going to talk about something that's completely off the shelf. And yes, I was talking with Tamara earlier today. She was in my office, and I was talking about how this is kind of like life university. And it is. It's going to feel like drinking through a fire hose for those of you that really are new to the information that we're going through. And today is a synthesis of about 15 years and about 5 to 6 different gurus of literally quantum physics and human behavioral psychology. And I have to be really clear. I use it anytime I'm experiencing overwhelm, frustration, anger, anxiety, and all of these things can be, I don't want to misconstrue this into some sort of like, we're not going to use this tool when you have a clinical condition that requires proper medical or counseling attention. What I'm talking about is we are all busy people. We're all raising, well, most of us are raising families. We've got businesses or we're in business, and we've got all kinds of relationships that are going on outside of just ourselves. And sometimes we just hit the overwhelm button. This tool, this is better for summarizing. This tool is going to help us to identify the wounds that play in the background of our subconscious. And some of us have more than just one wound that's constantly telling stories about the way certain things are. And I'll explain how this works in a second. These wounds create these self-limiting stories about ourselves and or others, and they can become massive obstructions. Now, it also helps when we're in situations where we just lack clarity and things feel foggy, and we just want a little bit more clarity about which way we want to go. What should we be focusing on? When we find ourselves in kind of the middle of immediate gratification, we just want to know which direction should we go. The ability to squash that inner critic is another big one that comes in. I don't know how many of you guys, I'm going to put my hand up because this happens almost on a daily basis, go into the battle of ego. It's the, I'm better than, I got this, I got it all figured out, or I'm less than, and I can't figure this shit out, and I'm stupid, and I don't think I'm enough, and all of this talk that goes on inside of our head, all of these things can prevent traction and expansion in life, and this is just a tool that will help you go whoosh, back on target. Okay? Now, I'm just trying to think here. I would actually, before we go into this, I would actually like to have a volunteer to go through this. Julia, do you think that you would be okay with going through this process? Yeah, okay. I'm going to unmute you then.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do for everyone else is I'm going to bring up the questions so that people can just follow through. Now, this is going to be, you don't need to write all this stuff down. You can go through this process with me today. You can go through it in such a way that you can actually ask these questions for yourself and just follow along. I'm going to use Julia just as an example And so thank you for volunteering. Julia, you and I have actually done this a couple of times, so this isn't a brand new process to you. It does require a certain amount of vulnerability. So one of the things that I will say is that for everybody that participates with this, and Julia works with me, so we work on this stuff on a regular basis. She's got a comfort level, but what I would ask for you is if you're going through this process on your own or whatnot, when you hear others go through this process, this is pretty much confidential information, so keep it to yourself. This is why when you do this in the app, it's meant to be a self-guided guru, essentially. It's just meant to ask you questions so you can dive deeper into what's actually stopping you or irritating you and reframe things, okay? It's not designed to create or to treat conditions, etc. It's designed just to go, oh, that's where I was getting in the way, and oh, right, that's where I'm supposed to go, okay? So, Patriot Missile Game is what we actually call it. Once I have this corrected with my design team, I will have access for each of you guys to give this a shot. I like using it in the app. You can also write this handwritten. I've written this handwritten, I've written this out probably 50 or 60 times, just this version of it, but it's really easy if you're just sitting on in the car and something's irritating you, or if you come home at night and you're struggling with something. I find it a little bit easier if I can just pull out my phone, as most of us do these days. There is an app for everything. And if you can just open up the app and fire through this really quickly, what this will eventually do for you is it's going to go through the process, and then it will print it out and send it to you in an email, so that it gives you actions that you've created and a printout of the process that you've just gone through, okay? So that is all coming. It's on its way. I really wish to have it done today. And for people that are seeing this months from now or years from now, you will already have access to the app, and you will be giggling at my frustrations as I'm in the development mode of it. Okay, so again, Patriot Missile Game is really to be utilized to get rid of triggers, reframe feelings such as anger, frustration, resentment, and anxiety. It's also utilized in certain situations to utilize moments of joy to create power through gratitude and acknowledgement. It's not just a I'm frustrated tool. It's also, what do I do with all of this joy that's bubbling up? And in quantum physics, one of the things that you will study is that when you're down in a pit, well, oftentimes you're missing the balance to the situation. And then when the happier, the more elated one becomes, we also know that the higher we go, the further we have to fall. So the balancing act of gratitude is an important aspect of the work that we do within our coaching and the coaching that we do in our programs here. Okay, so it's important that we have the ability to use this tool on both aspects of that. The last thing it does, like I said, is to regain focus, aligned with your values, missions, and actions that are important to you. So this, folks, essentially is a way to get traction and expansion. And if you're drinking through the fire hose right now with all of the information that I'm throwing at you, that's normal. But let's be honest. In the mountain of life, the mountain wants you to quit. There's just a little piece inside of you that's like, you don't got this. And this is just going to give you a tool to go, no, I got this. Okay? So the overwhelm, if you're experiencing it, is completely normal. And as we go through the process today, you can answer these questions for yourself as we follow along with Julia. So thanks again, Julia. I appreciate it. So here's what we're going to do. And I'm actually going to get a piece of paper out for myself. So this past week, we've gone through a couple of other things, Julia, but if I had to ask you this week, what has been, if you had to identify something that's been kind of getting in your way, has there been anything that's been frustrating you at all?
Yeah, the frustration we of course discussed last was my decision over the dog, and that's been an ongoing thing. But what I've discovered is more deeper is my impulsivity to get what
Okay,
I
so
want.
you're currently being triggered just by the impulsiveness of what's going on.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just in a video conference here.
Okay. So the impulsivity that you're noticing, and to make reference to what it is that you and I are talking about, recently somebody may have acquired a dog, right? And as much as the dog is fantastic and brings amazing love to a family, it also brings other challenges that many of us are very aware of. So needless to say, my understanding, based on what I know about the situation and what's going on, is that you are struggling a little bit with when you're unfocused and unfocused on a direction that you're going in, you have a tendency towards immediate gratification. In this case, it's the dog, but that's what's frustrating you, is just the impulsivity. Exactly. Is that correct? All right. So when you think about that, what is the emotion that you're experiencing? So what are you feeling about yourself when you think about that?
Shame, doubt, frustration, a little bit of anger.
Okay. And obviously this feels negative, and I like to kind of rate these things just so that it makes a logical sense. If you had to rate this on a scale of 1 to 10, you've definitely had some things that are like 10 or 11 out of 10, but what would you rate this one?
This particular incident, I would say, is a 6,
okay.
But it brought up for me that it's unaddressed and long-term unaddressed, which makes it feel like a 10.
Yeah, got it. Okay. So what then is the story that you're telling about yourself? What is the interpretation of the situation that you...
that I can't trust my own thoughts and feelings. That I am not intelligent enough to navigate basic decision making.
Okay. And in this particular situation, your frustration is with yourself. It's not a frustration with anybody else. So for anybody that, when you're watching this, you guys, if you're frustrated in someone else, like your daughter, your husband, your business partner, a client, or whatever it is, we all get these frustrations. If the story is about this person is pissing me off right now, then the next part of this would be going into ultimately, where are you doing the same thing? And it's really important, before you even progress further, ultimately, every situation that we get triggered by is really a gift or a lesson that we're learning about ourselves. Nobody ever pisses us off. It really comes down to something that's within ourselves. So it's important that we immediately reframe a second story that would be about ourselves. Now, in this case, you're quite self-aware, Julia, and ultimately this is just a frustration that's lying within yourself, okay? So my next question then is, if you feel that something else should occur, I give you something to consider, and this would be the next list of things. Either you think that you should be more, that kind of sounds like a piece of it, that you should have been able to use more of your cunning skills and tools in life to be able to make these decisions, that you shouldn't have been as impulsive, that there's a piece of you inside of you that's thinking, oh my God, what are others going to think of me? There's
for sure.
Probably a piece of you that's like, I'm probably broken, so who am I to be allowed out into the yard without a leash? I'm assuming.
Yeah,
kind of all of
exactly.
Okay, so if you feel that something else should have occurred, what's that story? What should have happened?
Uh, so I have all of these wonderful resources available, and hindsight always being 2020, I'm like, why didn't I use that? Why didn't I connect with this person I know? Why didn't I just stop and breathe before acting? Who the heck left me in charge? And holy shit, if I'm the one in charge, now what?
Got it. I have a vague idea that I understand your situation.
Yeah.
I'm yet to not be criticized for being impulsive.
Usually I wear it with a badge of honor, but
of course.
every once in a while,
Every once in a while, the shame overwhelms, and it's like, what the fuck? I can't undo this. Pardon my language
Yeah.
for anybody that's offended by my favorite word. Now, next. One of the things that this is a little bit more difficult to do on your own. So basically, if you're watching this, I'm going to walk Julia through a little bit of a meditation that I want you to really kind of, you get better and better at this as you go through this. So Julia, just for the sake of participation, I'm going to have you just sit and close your eyes for a second, and I'm going to walk you through this process, okay? Because I want everybody, this is one of the most important parts of this process, because Julia's shame, when we look at it from the outside in, it's kind of like, really, like, we can judge it through our lens. It's not really that big a deal. But to her, it feels like it. So we're going to just snap out of this so that we can course correct the situation. This is how we do this, okay? So first of all, I want you, keeping your eyes closed, I want you to take a big deep breath in through your nose. Big deep breath in and release through your mouth. And big deep breath in through your nose and release through your mouth. And big deep breath in through your nose and hold it this time. And hold it and hold it and release through your mouth. Okay. So just for a second, I want you just to keep keeping your eyes closed, regulate it a little bit with the oxygen, a little bit of relaxation. I want you just for a second to sit there with the feelings of shame, doubt, frustration, and anger. And I want you just to feel them for a second. And once you feel where they are in your body, I want you just to put your hand up, keeping your eyes closed. Okay, where are you feeling it all right now?
Oh, here. A little bit here.
Okay. Okay. So what's interesting, you guys, when the more and more that I study this, and keep your eyes closed, Julia, is that when we experience anxiety, it has a tendency to kind of be in the belly. When we experience sorrow and kind of sad feelings, they have a tendency to be in the throat. Anger has a tendency to be sitting on the back of the neck, so you can kind of see how these are all being displaced through Julia at the moment. So here's the next question that I want to ask you is, if you can think back to the very first time you felt this exact same compilation of feelings, shame, doubt, frustration, and anger, all at the same time. We learn each emotion only once in life, but there's things that stand out, there's experiences that stand out for us, and the earliest experience that you can remember, Julia, of having these four things all at once just wallop you was when? How old were you and what happened?
I was 9 or 10. No, that can't be right. It would have been 11 or 12. I had recently moved here from Ontario and joined a ballet studio. And every other kid in my class was promoted to point but me. And the teacher had coached the other children to seclude me and ridicule me for being overweight.
Okay. So I want you to continue to just sit with that particular experience that you had back when you were, 11 or 12, and you were basically being abandoned by the people that you thought were your unit. The shame, the doubt that comes about yourself, frustration that you're not pushing forwards even through the effort, and an anger that I can imagine.
Oh yeah.
My question for you now is, in your own words, if you had to use single words, not stories, what would be the opposite emotion? If you had to use a word to describe the opposite of this collaboration of emotions, what would that one word emotion be?
Joy. Confidence. I changed my mind. Confidence.
Okay. And in your life at that time, the exact same time when you were 11 or 12, where were you experiencing confidence?
On the stage during performances.
So regardless of how that situation with others making decisions about you went on, to you, the stage was a highlight. That's where you flourished.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Definitely.
So the point you guys, if you guys can see this, I'm going to keep your eyes closed, Julia, of going through this experience is that when we see a frustration or a negative experience, the brain goes unconscious. And it goes back to an emotional reaction that we have when we're young often, and we become blinded to the other possibility. And that comes out when we're triggered as adults. We go back into that age and we go back into being triggered like that. So ultimately what I want you to comprehend or consider for a second, that the trigger about the dog and the impulsivity that Julia's having right now, ultimately she immediately goes back to an 11, 12-year-old and her experience of essentially being alienated, being made to feel not enough, okay? And as a result of this, she's only seeing these negative emotions. She's not seeing the confidence that's coming out. So I want, just for a second, where are you experiencing or creating the emotion of confidence now, right now in your life?
Oh, actually, through your guidance, I have managed to manifest it in many different areas. I am part of a community and a company and a vision that aligns with my values. And even though it's hard work and it's not where I want it to be, every part of the work feels good. I'm excited to come to work. I don't relate to those Mondays suck mains. I actually don't like downtime. I would rather be working towards it. I'm built a beautiful home. I have an amazing family on multiple levels. I make the hard decisions that suck and it moves us forward, and I'm in charge and trusted by many people in my community.
Yeah, you're an A gamer, Julia, and the reality of it is if I can just share for a moment, while we've been working together, I've basically followed you along a path of walking away from quite a blossoming business in the pizza industry, where you overworked and just about burnt your life down, to now working, working within a martial arts world, building connection within your community and in families aligned with who you are. It's phenomenal to watch.
It's mind-boggling. I always wanted to be that person that was doing the thing that they loved, and you read about it and it was bizarre which steps took me to there, and now I can't imagine living life any other way.
Now you're doing it, which is just you're the example of where I want people to take themselves. Now listen, just for a second, let's go back to when you were 11 and 12. What would have been the drawbacks of that experience never happening to you?
I would have never breached my comfort zone and gone after the stuff I love.
Okay, And can you see
given up
all of the different places where it's actually been able to create massive power in your life, having that experience? So this is the part, you guys, where particularly when we're children, we don't have the wherewithal to actually see the benefits of these things. But what I want you to see is when we're triggered in adulthood and we go back to being that 11 or 12-year-old, we shut off to the benefits. Okay? Now, do you see just for a moment why this trigger is being created for you?
Yeah.
Because what it's doing is it's just reminding you to connect back to Julia. You're creating all this amazing stuff, yet you're getting blinded by this negative trigger, and you're just turning off the gift is basically what you're doing. Okay? So let's get clear on who you are and what you want, all this kind of stuff. I'm going to flip to the next page here. So you've already done the work, so keep your eyes closed, and I'm going to test you in front of everyone else. Okay, so what are your top 3 to 5 values?
Adventure, accomplishment, edge, and inclusion.
Is it inclusion or association? Which one stands out from you more?
Oh, sorry, association.
Yeah, I think
Totally
it's
association. Yeah.
You and I rattle these things off, and ours are so similar that I get why you're doing that. And I know that you've gone through your mission statement multiple times now, but we've gone through this a couple times. The elevator version of your mission is roughly what?
I am an adventurous, accomplished businesswoman on a mission to create a community with others of like-minded vision and drive and passion through a martial arts school. I actually tweaked it, but I can't remember the exact wording, and I'd have to open my eyes to see it.
Okay. No worries. Just keep your eyes closed. Let's go through this. Ultimately, your mission is to create connection and community and expansion through martial arts. I think is basically the rough version of it is what I understand.
Yes.
Okay, and that can change, and it's yours. I'm just for the sake of the explanation, I'm going to use that. Okay, so based on your values of adventure, accomplishment, association, and edge, and your mission to create community, connection, and expansion in families through the martial arts, what's a story that you could tell about your impulsivity, which is the initial trigger, that's aligned with your values and your mission?
To grow in martial arts, you cannot stay in your comfort zone. If I didn't have the ability to drive forward, even when I'm scared, this wouldn't work. Being brave is doing things even when you're scared.
Wow. Okay, folks, this is powerful. You can open your eyes now.
Okay.
Now, what I want to do is I want to read this back to you.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me which of the stories that you just told this entire group feels best to you. The first story you told me is that you can't trust your own inner thoughts and feelings, and that you're not intelligent enough to navigate your basic decisions. The second story is, why didn't you stop, breathe before acting? And the third story that you just told me is that in order to grow in martial arts, you must challenge your comfort zone. You are essentially acting aligned with your values and your mission, because being brave is doing things that are even when you're scared, including challenging your family.
Yes.
Which one of those? Which
Number
one
three.
of those? Yeah, the last one is totally aligned with you. And how does it make you feel to tell yourself that story compared to the bullshit you were telling me to begin with?
Oh, I'd much rather place my energy there. Feels way better.
So
yeah,
having the dog and making the impulsive decision in this case, It's just you, girl.
Yeah.
It's actually you being an example for the people that you work with to say, like, listen, I'm willing to challenge myself on a daily basis. This is just another example of it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what are you noticing then? What is the lesson or the epiphany or the decision you're making as a result of this exercise?
Well, the decision that I've made is that it's okay for me to embrace my impulsive side even when it doesn't necessarily result in what I'm looking for, because it's aligned with my values and I can always course correct. And being around other successful people and having community, even people that fail, just allows you to see options and keeps you from going inward, which I tend to do. So again, it's that community that I wanted, and hey, look at that. Not only am I creating a community where others can benefit, but I'm benefiting myself.
Yeah, and ultimately, Julia, what I see in you too is that your impulsivity is what pushes you forwards.
Every time.
It makes you leap. And when you can align it with who you are, it's not always that bad.
Well, yeah, and the other thing too is that if I didn't act on those impulses, I would be losing ground.
Yeah, you would.
Like on so many levels.
Okay, so shall we summarize this?
Yes.
Okay, so everybody that's following this, if you're going through this process for yourself, this is the printout that will be given to you when you're using the app. So once you've gone through the process, it'll print it out for you. But this is how I want you to summarize this, okay? Based off of your particular values, Julia, of adventure, accomplishment, association, and edge, okay, and the mission of creating a community and connection and expansion in your community through the martial arts, okay, and through essentially challenging those values associated with it. The chosen story is that in order to grow within the martial arts, you must challenge your comfort zones. You are truly acting aligned with this, and being brave is doing the things even when you're scared. The lesson or the epiphany is that ultimately bracing for your impulsivity is part of the challenge that you're going through, essentially, that you challenge others to do, that pushing into discomfort and pushing into fear, it's actually something that you are just leading by example. So I guess my next question for you is, what's one thing based off of this impulsive nature that you have, the trigger, what's one thing based out of all of this that you'd like to create going forwards that's aligned with your values and your mission? What could you create using the impulsivity but aligned with your values and your mission?
What popped into my head was a troubleshooting method for navigating the aftermath of my often impulsive decisions so that I don't end up in a pit of self-pity.
Okay, so you could create a process. Then what I'm hearing from you, I think I'm hearing from you, is that you could create a process where when you have a decision that you want to make, you're going to create an automated response that's going to be, is this something I want to challenge myself to or not?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question on here is there an action that you can create today or that you can take today that will move you towards that action?
I have like 4 thoughts there just as you were talking. I want to actively fill my rest time with something a little bit more engaging, because this past holiday I rested, and I feel like I make better decisions when, oh no, see, that's the staying busy. That's the sedating thing again.
Yep. So what I want you to think about is, you just said to me that you want to be able to create a response decision action.
Okay.
So that when you are being impulsive, you take a step away. So it would be something along the lines of, when something comes up that's impulsive, you take a minimum of 24 hours before you make the decision and say yes to it.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So where
Or
right
maybe
now
talking
are
to
you being
people.
faced with a decision that you feel is rather impulsive that you could start to practice that?
Yeah, okay. There's a bunch of expansion things I want to do with the business. I've been tempted to leap onto, and they cost money, and there's risk. My favorite things. And I've been kind of holding back talking to anybody about it because I know they're all going to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I don't want anybody to slow me down, damn it.
Okay, so which one is it that you're going to practice today? Is there a specific one?
I am going to hold off and I'm going to consult those that I trust and take even another day after talking to them to really let all that information come in before making the call.
There you go. Awesome. Okay. So, and are you able to do that today? Communicate that? Okay. So that's going to be one of the actions. I want you to actually write that down, Julia, that you're going to go and do this. Otherwise, we're just talking into thin air.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the end of the Patriot Missile game, you guys, I want you to also consider your daily engine. So if you're doing this first thing in the morning, I like to do this first thing in the morning when I get up. I'm going to write out what are my commitments for the day. If you're doing this at the end of the day, I use this as a bit of a brag journal to look at what I've actually accomplished. Okay. So with respect to body, again, we're going to get at least 1 point. So half a point per thing. Something exercise, something green, something aligned with your nutrition, something with your spine and your nervous system. You get half a point for each of those things. For your body or for your being, soul, fulfillment, you get half a point for meditation, journaling, some sort of aligned project work. For relationships or balance is what we like to call it, you get half a point for a date with self, partner, kids, connection, or a note to anyone who would benefit from being seen by you today. So when I say seen, like they just need to know somebody sees me. They need some level of acknowledgement or support, okay? Now, what I want you also to remember, based on what we did with this, okay, when you are working within your relationship stuff and you are connecting with people, remember we all like to be connected with and loved differently. Remember, and Julia, you and I have had lengthy discussions about this, is that your husband, your children, you, etc., we all appreciate love in a different way. So make sure, if you guys haven't done this already, go onto the 5lovelanguages.com, take their little survey and make sure that you're clear as to how you appreciate love, because you will start to notice you give love away the way you like to be appreciated, and your partner and the people that are around you may not appreciate it that way. Like if you give me gifts, most of the time I won't even acknowledge them. They'll end up in the garbage, and you will sit there and go, wow, he didn't appreciate that. I'm like, I don't. But I appreciate if you grab my hand and you connect with me. I appreciate when I'm overwhelmed and I'm doing a bunch of things, if you take something off my plate, like it's nobody else's business. I appreciate when people acknowledge what it is that I'm doing, the effort that I'm putting in, and they're able to take some benefit from it. There's different things that I do. Okay? Some people like gifts. Some people like acts of service, physical touch, words of affirmation. My wife loves quality time. So Trace, if you're watching this now or later, okay? So remember that when you're setting that up, okay? Lastly, with business, learn, study, do this exercise. This exercise gives you a full point for business, full point, because ultimately you're in self-discovery about growing your potential. And anything else that you can do to expand, any other actions you can do, any of the actions that come out of the Patriot Missile game that you actually take action on count as half a point. Okay, so Chris, this is a little bit new for you in that this basically takes the stack. It takes Dr. John DeMartini. It takes bits and pieces of what I've learned from one of my greatest mentors right now, and Dr. Nima Ramani. It takes a lot of the different information that I've been synthesizing over the last little while, and it helps to take anything that's going on, and just reframes you back to you and puts you into action. Okay? As opposed to, for me, I was just getting lost with some of the other processes. Okay? Now, I'm going to go through this really quickly again well, I've got about 5 minutes. Okay? What I want you to consider is that this whole process can be done in a positive way as well. So I'm going to fire through this. For those of you that are watching this, you can pause this and stop this and start this whenever you want. But if, let's just say that you have an amazing experience. I had an amazing experience with my family this past week skiing in the hills. So what was the trigger? It was an amazing experience with friends and family. What was the emotion that I experienced? Just pure joy and relaxation. So what is the story that I'm telling myself about it? Is, you know what? I freaking earned and enjoyed one of the best weeks of my life. It was wonderful. It's not about someone else. I don't need, there's no other story that I'm going to create. Shouldn't have happened any other way. Okay. Go to the next question. Positive emotions. So instead of going through the negative emotions questions, the positive emotions, or who can I express gratitude for this experience? Well, you know what? I actually haven't even said thank you to my friends who flew out from Ontario to enjoy the experience with me for everything they and their children did. Wow, I'm going to actually write that down right now. Thank you. In fact, I'm going to do that as soon as we're done. It's just a quick little thank you for that experience. What is my action? Thank you. Now, one of the most important things that I can have you guys consider doing, this is really a deeper level thing, is when when you actually look at your wounds that are inside of you, that little child that's inside of you, this is definitely a Nima DeMartini type of talk, is when you're having a wonderful experience, every once in a while, I want you to consider just seeing that little child that's inside of you that has had wounds and acknowledging them for doing the proper things and connecting with them, okay? So anytime you have a positive emotion, just close your eyes. And I know this sounds kind of far out because you'll have to understand this at a much deeper level, but just acknowledge yourself for positive experiences. Be with yourself, because oftentimes it's easy just to brush that stuff off, okay? If we follow through in the questions here, even during the positive triggers, for example, you still go through your top 3 to 5 values in your mission statement. So for me, adventure, accomplishment, inclusion, and edge. My mission statement is to develop and deliver extraordinary life strategy to successful business parents that are in the midlife triangle of chaos. Basically, relationships, business, kids, all the chaos that comes with that. When you're experiencing overwhelm, burnout, anxiety, stress, frustration, etc., but you want to thrive and you just want clarity through courageous action back to thriving, that's my mission statement, okay? Is there another story that I can tell aligned with that? Well, not really for me at this point in time, simply because that past week was me adventuring, accomplishing, including, and there's lots of edge on the mountain. I was literally living my mission statement and my values through that action. It's amazing how when you have such positive experiences, how you start to recognize it's through the creation and alignment of your values and your mission. So fast forward 1 year from now, what's another story that I'd like to create? Heck, I think I could create at least once a year a family vacation with others that is challenging, adventurous. That would be good for me. So guess what? One of my actions that's going to come out of this is that I'm actually going to go and create another adventure. And I'm going to start to run this off my friends and see if I can create another one. Because if I can do that now, then I set myself up for the future. Which story is it that I'm going to choose? That I enjoyed my trip or that I'm going to create a new trip? Well, I enjoyed both, but I'm going to create a new trip, okay? What am I noticing about this? The more aligned I am, the more life is incredible, okay? last but not least, summary of these things. I go through my summary, only it's got mainly positive outcomes and gratitude. So the point of doing this in a positive way is taking the energy of joy and positivity and pushing gratitude out. When we have all of this energy and joy, it's almost like loading a gun and then not using it. Like the power that comes from positivity, really when it's harnessed into acknowledging others and pushing out that abundant energy into the community and the people that are around you, just acknowledging somebody, saying thank you for something. I can't encourage you guys enough to use the Patriot Missile game when you get an opportunity to use it in a positive direction, because it will have just as big an impact for you as using it when you're triggered. Right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, you guys, I'm going to open the floor just for a second just to see if there's any other questions. Jen, I think that you've, at least your video's out. Kyla, I see you there. There's Jen hiding in the background. Chris, this has been a little bit of a twist on some of the information we've used in the past. Open up the floor. Anybody have any questions, observations, or comments about the process that we've just gone through? And don't worry, you don't have to master this right now. That's not the point. I promise you guys will have access to the app, so you'll be able to practice with this and go through the process all on your own. Any questions or comments right now? In fact, let's start with you, Julia. What are you noticing just coming out of this again now that we've gone through this?
That actually doing 2 stacks on the same topic was actually immensely helpful. The first one kind of got me going, but that one actually hit right in the heart for me. So
awesome. It's amazing how sometimes we just have to process.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely the 2 stacks was super helpful. And also that revisiting multiple different areas of my work to verify my words, my values, my directions, my goals. I cannot just do it in my head. It has to be written down.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
And I'm already annoyed because I don't want to write anything, but it's fine.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, but that's another project that we're working on. Okay, thank you. And listen, thank you for being so vulnerable and open to going through the process. I know that you've got a higher level comfort zone with working through this, so I appreciate you. Okay, let me just see. Jen, what did you notice listening into this? Was there any observations, questions, or anything that you've observed going through that?
Well, I like the quick process technique, right? Like, yeah, I was running through it thinking about my daughter this morning who's being very 3, and she had a meltdown because she didn't want to go to nature school. And I'm just like, and I really wanted, I mean, I'm hiking. I hike and run on Thursdays, and I'm like, you're ruining my plan right now, right? And, you know, I was kind of running through that process, and it was really interesting to see, like, where that's rooted from, you know, because I was writing as we went, thinking about that, and you know, why the need to feel like, or just the trigger around like not feeling in control. I can't control the situation, and where that's rooted from. And then what can I do? What's my, you know, how's that connected to my values? You know, like what am I actually wanting to accomplish here? And then the higher level is like, I am most of the time, you know, present and connected and patient, right? And in some moments I'm not, when it, you know, I start to feel like I'm losing control, you know, of the plan. I can be very like, you know, this is the plan. Why are you messing with the plan, right? And yeah. So it was cool to kind of like look at the deeper rooted issues about like my childhood. And there was immediately an issue that came up where I felt all those feelings. I was like, whoa, I haven't revisited that for a while. Right. So yeah, it's cool. It's like, it's really quick and dirty.
Yeah. And that's the point of it. And the reality of it is that I find that so many of us, we don't harness our emotions. The emotions are what are giving us, they're giving us clues into whether we're connected or disconnecting from ourself and from our soul. And sometimes we're fully connected, but we're allowing ourselves to disconnect. We're just not focused on that.
And I
That's
find
that
that,
level of control that you're talking about.
and that anger, you know, it's definitely how I express most things that aren't going well is by getting mad, right?
that
I'm not
right?
a crier. I'm not there's no Kleenex boxes beside my bed, right? I get mad. And yeah, and I feel like as I become more and more self-aware, it's like, that's indulgent. I know too much for that. I know too much for that, you know, and I'm not going to indulge that as much as you know, you got to do the work, right? To not just go skipping down the rage path, right? You know? So yeah, it's really good. It's good stuff.
You can own the rage whenever it comes. The reality of it is
And
when we get
choose.
triggered, sometimes we just need to let it out as well.
That's right.
Okay.
And choose, right? Like I can choose.
Totally.
But I don't know. This morning I didn't choose very well.
Had a little rage party, did you?
I totally did.
Thank you for sharing. Kyle, I can't quite see. Are you trying to talk through there? Oh, it looked like you're trying to talk. No, it's okay. You've muted yourself now. Did you have any questions?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you bet.
I don't have questions, but I have two comments. Like I'm familiar with talking to the little child inside in like triggering contexts, but the idea of talking to the little child in a positive way, I really like that idea.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to say to Julia that when you said, I am brave when I try new things, that feels really good.
Yeah.
And I really liked hearing that inside me. So
Cool.
and those are my comments.
I like that you were able to resonate with that in a positive way. I think that a lot of the work definitely can dive deeper, particularly in sort of a group sense. But I'm telling you right now, like men don't do this. We have a tendency to completely ignore our emotions, completely, and so this is just going through this process will awaken many of us just to what are these feelings that we're experiencing. So yeah, that's great. Kyle, anything else? You said that was one of two, I think. You had another comment?
Oh, just talking to the child inside, but I've done that like in negative triggering context to reframe things.
Yeah.
But the idea of reaffirming the child inside in positive ways with positive emotions and positive situations, really cool idea.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments? Dr. Chris, I can't tell if you're still there. Are you still there?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, hey, no worries. I'm just curious as to any insights or comments that you might have.
Well, you know, it's amazing how, you know, when the ego gets into things and the stories we make up and how it just is constantly trying to just push us down, you know. So, you know, like I said, Julia, you know, thanks for your share and everything and participating with us. You know, it's that's why you're in groups like this, yeah, to help kind of, you know, work things out, work it through, to find that enlightenment, right, or that good spot, right? So, good job.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks, brother.
Welcome.
Okay.
You.
Anything else you can think of? Any other comments? Any other questions? You good?
I'm good. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. And Ed, I can't tell if you're in the background or hiding. You there?
I'm still here.
Okay. You would love the error that I made in the app. They were listening to me go through one of my own processes. So one of the last questions that's in the app is, how would you like to change your story to creating that flexibility program? And that's what it would be asking all of you.
Yeah.
So a couple little bugs to work out. And as you said, I'm sure there's going to be many more. Any
Just getting started, brother.
No. Any other observations or comments from you, my friend?
No, just my experience of going through as you walked myself and some of our other brothers and group through this. Like the results are amazing. Like to be able to for me, it's been able to choose something that's positive and happy and exciting in my life, rather than spending a lot of time always looking for something that's wrong and trying to make it right.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest issues, is that like there's times where I am frustrated and I've got something I just need to walk through, but taking positivity and great energy and moving it forwards to something, I think is absolutely incredible. Yeah, thank you. Any other comments or observations?
No, like this is, although we've been drinking from a fire hose, like it's what you need to like get through, and some inertia and some like momentum to get you through. So
totally. Okay, guys. So the homework today is, if you didn't write down the questions or didn't perform this while we were going through the exercise today, I want you to stop it and walk through it and try to walk yourself through the questions and get through an entire Patriot missile game. That is your homework. Tomorrow is Friday, and tomorrow's webinar is going to be at 5 p.m. Pacific time for those of you guys that can attend. And if we go back to the topics over here for a second, we're going to be talking about the base camp. We're going to be talking about setting up weekly habits in the relationship category for self, partner, spouse, significant other, kids, anybody in your life that's important that you're wanting to work on improving your relationships with. That's what that's going to be about as we continue to work up. And again, the concept of the base camp will be explained and as to why that is mandatory and necessary if we are in that search of freedom in our life. It's all really about habit traction in this. I hope you guys have enjoyed today, and I look forward to comments, questions, and enjoying our time together tomorrow. Bye for now, you guys, and thank you for all of you that were here, present, and participating today. Bye for now, you guys.
You guys, bye.
Bye.